So I want to talk to you a little bit about the concept of force imbalances. And so usually when I'm talking to doctors, coaches, athletes, therapists about imbalances, everyone has a little bit of variety of how they classify what an imbalance is. For me, my terminology is force imbalance, but really what it's representative of is a muscular imbalance, a strength imbalance, and then also a biomechanical imbalance. And so typically this is how I formulate the concept for myself. So anytime that we have a force imbalance or an athlete has a force imbalance, that simply means for me, they have a muscular error that automatically or instantaneously create a biomechanical error and a strength error. And so those three things lead to an increase in tissue overload. And then once we have an increase in tissue overload, we start to see both those predictable patterns of injury as well as the unpredictable patterns of injury. And so I think this is significant, right? Because a lot of the things that we're working on or we're treating or we're training is based on tissue overload, and we start to see that if things are out of position, they start to create both predictable patterns of injury as well as those unpredictable patterns of injury. So, for what do I mean when I say force imbalance? That simply means that I understand that muscles need to be at a specific length in order to maintain force and alignment. Now, what that does for us as humans, it allows us to create leverage. Once we have leverage, then we can exert force, and then we get velo from that. Now, velo, or velocity, is simply mobility and speed in a specific direction. So that's what we want. That's what we call performance. Now, that's when everything is working well. When things aren't working well, then we get into this imbalance scenario. So what happens is one muscle starts to pull harder, that causes another muscle to pull less. This is a classic power struggle. And so instead of muscles working together, they end up competing against each other to produce movement. And so at this point, now instead of having that synergy, we have this disruption pattern. So when we think about it, it doesn't matter if you say, you call the human body an anatomical chain, you call it a biomechanical chain, kinetic chain, it does not matter. It is a suspension-based system. So position equals power. And if things are out of position, there is a lack of